Call this meeting to order. Thank you, everyone. Karen, do we have attendance? We do. Recess for closed session is on the agenda. That's not an item of action, though.
You're past that.
We're back now.
So approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda, please.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Sorry.
Okay. Great, so moved. Moving on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
I move to approve. Thank you.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so moved. Karen, citizens' comments, please.
Good evening. Some time ago, I was reading a comparison of two of baseball's Hall of Fame pitchers. The author went through his metrics, and in the end, he concluded that pitcher A was 25 games better than pitcher B, or as he put it, 25 games greater than great. And there, I think, lies the challenge for the library staff and you as trustees, how to maintain and improve upon what you've already achieved. Because the AADL is already great, 12-time Library of the Year, amazing programming, creative, strong leadership, healthy balance sheet, and much, much more. Improving upon excellence requires a terrific strategic plan. That's what I came here tonight to talk about, the library's strategic plan. As I read through the document, I was impressed by the thought and the effort that went into understanding the Ann Arbor area's challenges. 1, shifting demographics. 2, income inequality. 3, rapid technological changes that have helped breed social isolation. And 4, creating a sustainable environment for ourselves and future generations. I appreciated the value statements, succinct yet powerful, fresh yet honoring the best of the library's past thinking. However, as a strategic plan, I believe it falls a little bit short. I was not expecting something like the prior strategic plan, which was more of a tactical plan for achieving certain things. I was expecting an articulation of overarching goals and aspirations. Perhaps these goals and possible methods of achieving those goals and associated targets will be forthcoming over the next several months. I hope so. The strategic document also talks several times about access, something the library is tremendous at providing at, whether to individuals or to groups or whoever. I have viewed the library as incredibly responsive to questions, open to suggestions when they are presented, and possessing a willingness to make all of their programs successful. However, I do wish there was equal focus on outreach. Here's a few examples of what I mean. There are 165,000, give or take, residents within the library service district, of which maybe 65,000 are regular users. How can the library identify and serve the non-regular user, particularly those who are disadvantaged or marginalized in some way? Additionally, are there opportunities to partner with other entities to enhance the Ann Arbor community? For example, with the Ann Arbor schools in their goal to achieve close the achievement gap. Or perhaps we can work with the city and other entities to address climate change and reduce the library's own energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, there's been incredible growth on the outskirts of the library district. How will the library reach out to and assess the needs of these many new residents? I hope these and other similar type questions can be answered as you move forward with your plans. Thank you so much for your time and work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, do we have anyone else? No. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. That was very thoughtful. Thank you. Moving on to financial reports. Josie, please.
Thank you.
this time I'll use the agenda packet, not my notes.
Okay.
So, the financial statements begin on page 18 of your packet. Go through, oh, sorry, am I echoing? And go through, I hear it now, thank you, Eli. And go through page 22. The financial summary for 7 months ended January 2020 is the very first page. It shows the cash and current cash, tax receipts, and the percentage of tax receipts received, and the fund balance. And also there's an explanation there about the big dip in the fund balance is also a reiteration of money moved to the capital fund. That's why that long line is there that goes down, and that's for the use of some of the things we have going on in the building. In the financial summary for the 7 months, the revenue, expenditures, revenue over and under, and grants memorials are explained. I will point out that revenue over and under, there will be a need to reconcile at the end of the year, the line particularly in the finance and audit line, because of our use of Manor Costerison as a contractor to support the work, the finance management department. So that is the one line. When you look over into the statement of revenues and expenditures, you will see the 321% of the budget amounts used. That is the only line currently where we are over. And I wanted to wanting to draw your attention to that. The statement of revenues and the governmental funds explain the general fund, the capital fund, the restricted grant. So it's our total cash, total value, as opposed to the revenues and expenditures in the general fund, which is the operating budget that you approved. Is we clear on the difference? Okay. Are there any questions for me? And then on the very last one, sorry, is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. I will do my best to explain if you have questions. Anyone?
We're getting started into preparing for festival season.
That's right.
And are there any cash outlays that we're expecting that are different from last year?
No, the budget, they were budgeted for. I don't expect anything to be over. We're not looking at any overages in anybody's budget, program, events wise. I think we're pretty comfortable with what we budgeted and how much. We're not expecting any big changes in the budget because we moved money into capital fund. Lynn has what he needs. Other than what he's doing out of his operational budget for facilities. So I think we're okay on that.
Great.
Anything else? Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you, Josie. Moving on to committee reports. The executive committee had a call last Thursday. We reviewed a couple of things. One was a meeting that Josie had with the Smith Group, which is the consulting firm that the city of Ann Arbor had engaged to evaluate development on the Y lot, among other properties across the city. And they were able to come back and report out to us on basically the results of their community engagement process, and it looked very hopeful. I think it's something that we'd be very enthusiastic about, to see the Y lot being redeveloped. We looked. I think they had talked about 100 affordable housing units, something around
I
that.
can't remember off the top of my head.
Right, something like that. And I think, considering that it's replacing the housing that was there years ago, it's nice to see that there's some movement forward. And can't remember when it was torn down. It's been a while.
Yep.
Been a while. So a good positive discussion with the city. We also talked about Josie's evaluation coming up, with her report due before the end of this month. If you recall the process last time, that's when it comes to the executive committee for review. And then we have a questionnaire with the remainder of the trustees, and we'll coordinate with that, with everyone, and bring that back, and we'll go through closed session and review that with Josie. And I guess the last thing I should, you might notice that our trustee Colleen Sherman is missing at this meeting. She gave us notice this morning that she has resigned from the board due to professional reasons. So I've wished her well, thanked her for all of her work with the board, and what we'll be doing is undergo a process of appointing a new trustee to the board. So according to the bylaws, from how I understand it, this is where, as president of the board, I'll be accepting nominations for consideration, and we'll be voting for a new trustee at the next board meeting.
So people who are interested should contact you directly? Is that the process?
Myself, Josie,
Okay.
so
Or any of you.
or any of you.
Okay.
So, if this is the public notice, our contact information is.
To the term.
Yes, and this appointment would be voted upon by the board at the next meeting with the completion of the term till the end of this year. And should they so choose to run to be on the ballot, then they can also do that too, which is something I think Trustee Vanderbrook, Jamie, that you had undergone when
Exactly,
you were
right.
appointed.
It's a little bit longer. Oh, sorry. A little bit longer in between, but yes. Yeah.
Lynn, so I totally agree about hoping to appoint someone next meeting. Is that a requirement? Do we have a time limit, or there's not a time limit on it,
There's no
right? That
time
would be our
limit,
goal.
I think it's doable. I mean, this is, I don't know what the time lapse was before when Jamie was appointed.
One meeting.
One
Sounds
meeting.
really similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought at that time, but we've read and reread the bylaws around this issue. I thought at that time it actually was a requirement that the seat be filled by the next board meeting. But I'm not sure. I think we then we determined that the actual close reading of the bylaw was that it was indeterminate.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would, having gone through this process before, recommend that we discuss now what we want to do with those nominations, how we want to handle them,
Right.
and what will then happen to candidates in order for us as a board to discuss and potentially even interview them, which all has to happen in the context of this public meeting.
Yes, because the process that I went through was a little bit confusing for me. So I'm very much with Jim that let's make this very clear and open to people what they need to do, what can they expect if they come next month, if they submit their name.
Right. I think what I'd like to see is if there are nominations that come through trustees, even through staff, really, or the public in any way coming through to any of the trustees or Josie, is to see if interested parties can also meet with Josie. So I think it would be similar to how candidates who are thinking of running for election usually approach the process before they pull petitions. Is how, directly engage with staff, understand what the role might mean, directly engage with trustees, understand what the time commitment might mean.
Can I ask a process question of Josie?
Sure.
Is it within the if we as a group would decide that the executive committee should review the nominations and bring forward, say, a slate of potential candidates for this seat, can we vote to empower the executive committee to do that, or does this all need to be done within, if we have 8 people, do we need to consider all 8 names in the context of the open meeting?
The way the bylaws are written right now, the president has the authority to nominate a person to fill, and the board, the majority of the board that remains is how it's written. The majority of the board that remains votes to approve that nomination
Or not. Right.
So that is
that's
all
all the
the
process.
bylaws address. That's the process, right? And it's clear in there, though, there's more language depending on when a resignation occurs within a person's term.
Yeah.
There's a lot more language about
How long the term?
a term. But in this case, Colleen Sherman's term ended this year anyway. So this nomination is only for the rest of this calendar year.
Right.
Right, and if a person, as Lynn said, if a person wanted to continue on the library board, they would have to run in this election if they wanted to continue, so.
Knowing that there's no incumbent marking on the ballot. So
Right.
this is, it could be two separate issues. You know, I mean, the appointment, if we just think of the appointment serving to the remainder of the year, and it's up to the appointee to decide whether or not they would like to run.
Yeah.
And I think deadlines for petitions is July. So there's, I'd like to appoint next month, you know, we've been undergoing closed real estate discussions. We need to have a full body to do this work. And then also, it's also, you know, fair to this person that we're appointing to see what it's like to be on this board and to really consider before they pull petitions to run. So I think that's the, you know, the process. If you have names under consideration, folks who are watching are considering, if you can contact us and we can give you essentially what we give to candidates, which is, you know, the bylaws, the strategic plan, you know, all the information that we give to folks that we ourselves received when we ran. And then that will be something that I consider. And I can also have discussions with the executive committee too, as we find out, you know, what the interest really is.
The criteria for a person is no different than if they were being elected. So where they live, all that sort of thing, that
Right.
all applies. So that's something we have to, if somebody comes to us with interest, we have to make sure that those things are met.
Right.
And that's on us because there is no clerk in this case.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
So my strong suggestion with all of this is that whomever is brought forward, whether it's an individual or a number of people, to be considered by the whole board, because we do vote on this, is that that person presents him or herself here in front of the whole board for a conversation and interview before we vote. It is the only way for us who all have a vote and a stake in this to meet with together and talk with this person and get to know them.
Right, or if that person contacts each board or each trustee individually and is able to meet with them separately. I mean, we have options beyond.
It would be fairest if they all came. I remember when I was
Yes.
appointed,
I agree.
I felt like it was very unfair that the others weren't there. I was the only one who got to talk, you know, and so I
Okay.
think that like made it like, it's not, I think like it might sound like it's a lot to ask of them, but I think it also allows them to talk and see what we're like as a body, and
Right.
and it makes it more equal if they all do that and select from the people who are present. I mean, I understand someone might not be able to be present next month, and we wouldn't want that to be the only reason they couldn't join us, but I don't know.
I mean, I'd be interested in that same thing. I mean, we're going to have to vote,
Right.
and the meeting is not going to take 5 hours. I mean, we don't know how many candidates we're going to get. But I'd be interested in everyone who submitted their name having to write a letter to the board and appearing and give them a time box, like, you know, you got 5 minutes, and presenting themselves so that we have some basis on which to vote.
It is a strangely awkward
Yes.
process because
You're there.
we're here, but we're also, you know, we're a public body. And I do also think there's something to be said for, you know, what it means to just like, even though, you know, you can bring forward,
Well-
according to the bylaws, you can bring forward a person however you like,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that we can stop the process by basically voting no,
Right.
and then get to a process and that like is more transparent. And I can tell you definitively that if Jamie had not appeared that day, Jamie wouldn't have
No.
received the appointment, and that had to do with the fact that some people knew her and some people didn't, And there may not be a time for a process for an individual or a number of individuals to run around meeting all of us individually to kind of make their case.
We also have the 3-minute public comment time too, right? So I'm sure we could find a way to structure this so that we have names coming in for nominations. We can also ask for short bios that can be sent to the board and also shared in the packet. I mean, there are other bodies in Ann Arbor that have gone through a similar process.
School board just did that.
And people can speak. So let me put this into consideration as everyone pulls together all the names that you can think of that'd be interested in this work, because it is work. And I hope that we can each individually convey that to folks who are considering this. It's an unpaid but beautiful opportunity to serve the community with access to parking in the staff lot during our board meetings. That's a real thing. So
Not a perk to the bikers.
yes. So if you can join me in thanking Trustee Colleen Sherman for her time and her commitment in the time that she served, and reaching out to her, that would be, I think she would really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it too. And we will move on to the next step and seeing what we can do next month.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else that we can add from the executive committee that I might have missed from our call? Besides
I don't think so.
Trustees evaluation and the Y lot. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty much it.
That's it.
Okay.
And I would just second, I mean, I'm very sad that Colleen has had to step down, given her personal and professional obligations. She was a wonderful trustee, and I just so appreciate the work and dedication and her sense of humor and all of the things that she brought to the board. So it's really, I was quite sad to learn of her resignation today, and feel just grateful for everything that she's done as a trustee.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, I echo that, Jim. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim. All right. Moving on to Budget and Finance Committee. That's Dharma.
Yes, so we met last Tuesday. We discussed a few things. So first we discussed something that's on our agenda for later this meeting, about a 3-year extension with Yo and Yo. And just a quick reminder, I'm sure we'll discuss this more, but when we originally signed the 1-year contract, it had the possibility of the 3-year extension. So this isn't a new thing out of the blue. We also discussed the absence of a financial manager and that we've been fortunate enough to be able to use the services of Manor Costerson.
No one can say that.
And we're in very good hands because they're very experienced in governmental accounting and working with us, and they've been keeping everything running really smoothly. Last but not least, we're entering the time of year where it's time to plan for the next fiscal year, budget-wise. And so we created our timeline for looking at that budget, the draft budget, within the Budget and Finance Committee in March and April, so that we can bring it before the board in May.
April. The draft
Sorry.
budget comes to the board in April.
The budget
And the final budget
Final
in May.
approval
You got it right.
is May.
Yeah, you
All
got
right.
it right.
We have a lot of meetings about it. Did I miss anything from the other members of the committee?
Sounds right to me.
Great. Thank you, Dharma. Thank you. Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you. Moving on to Strategic Planning Committee. Amy.
So we have not. Where did Carrie
She just
go?
walked out. She'll be back.
Okay. We have not met in the intervening month, but we have instead worked with Bridgeport Consulting to revise slightly the strategic plan that was presented to you all at the last public meeting. And the revisions are due to the discussion that we had in the public meeting. So that was I think it was a robust discussion. I was really grateful that everyone cared and took the time to have it in the public meeting. And I think that what we present tonight better reflects some of the things that we talked about last month. But Carrie is here to present it. So, I'm sorry, Carrie, it's not quite time yet. I'm sorry, I'm down with something. But I'll have to Febreze this or something afterwards. But right, so Carrie will present it. I think that that's kind of it for the report of the committee, unless there are questions before we talk about this more with Carrie.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Carrie?
That was perfect timing.
It's actually
No,
not.
no,
not
no,
yet.
Carrie.
It's not Carrie.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Right. Yes.
Sorry, Carrie, that was me. All right, that's the committee, okay, thank you. So nothing else from the committee, no other questions for the committee?
No, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Moving on, sorry for the confusion, that was me, Carrie. All right, but don't leave. Thank you. Moving on to the director's report, Josie, please.
Thank you. So, slides are going up. Want to make sure that, this is a picture of Traverwood this week, and it's showing the scaffolding, shelving, new carpet. That is the new carpet that you're seeing. And they're moving the shelves in and getting things organized and doing painting, so that's happening. We're still hoping to open with the new glasswork and for the new meeting room, and we're still hoping for that, and we'll know more later. Lynn's going to give you an update, so I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm going to let him do it, but this is what this is. This is the satellite Iowa caucus in Michigan, and the shirt was not a plant, that just happened to be. But the lady sitting there, the older woman sitting there, was able to vote in the caucus for the first time in her life because she was living somewhere other than Iowa as an adult. So by being able to come here to vote, she was able to participate, which we thought was pretty special. So we were happy to be able to do that. All of the events that we are hosting for Black History Month can't go on a slide, but these are some of the major ones, and I talked about a few of them in my report, but on the website there are many, and I wanted to point that out to you. This is X Stanger, the photographer whose archives exhibit of his Ann Arbor News photographs are downstairs. I think, if I remember, Andrew told me some of the photographs on the wall were not published. So we have all of his photographs, his negatives, and these envelopes full of his negatives, and within those envelopes, 1 or 2 may have made it in the paper, and so 16 or so didn't. And we've gone through and pulled some of our favorites. And he clearly photographed all of the major world figures who came to U of M during that period of time, but he also had this remarkable eye for local. And so we concentrated this exhibit on local. So if you get a chance to see it, it's upstairs. To plug the archives, we're often asked about images and how to use them. So the image of Moondog was sought by Third Man Records for their magazine, Maggot Brain. And this is a 1972 photograph. And while we can provide a high resolution image, Advance has to give the rights, and that's how that works. So we were pleased about that one. And then this one, the 1937 farm auction out in Hamburg was sought by Discovery Channel UK for their series Born Mucky about farming. So this one's fascinating because of the implements and the milk cans, and we don't know any more about it than it was Hamburg. Jose Antonio Vargas event brought 500 people to the Towsley Auditorium, and this is a fun picture afterward. He was that energized at the end. He is revved up. He is a very fascinating speaker, very great with all the people who ask questions. He's the kind of person who walks out to the edge of the stage and looks at the person who's asked the question and talks to them. It's fascinating. So this was a great event with a great attendance. It was, there was not enough room in the auditorium, so we spilled out. We had seats set up out in the garden area, not what they call it, I'm not sure what they call it, the garden area, I call it, with the screen. So anyone who came could sit and watch it with others, and there were probably 75 or 100 people out in the garden area, where we had tables that were for a lot of different groups in town, a lot of different partners around the issue of immigration. who were there to talk to the people who attended about different services in the community and what's available. So that was also part of the evening. This is the fourth floor. Wanted to give you a picture, a little look in. If you can put yourself here, the curved wall, when you walked into the big fourth floor auditorium, there was that big curved wall. That's where it used to be. So you're looking west. If you're standing in the room and you're looking west, the double door openings will be the new main entry, and the control room and the podcast studio are beyond it. And so all the wall that was along the south side of the building, that side of the wall up there, that wall's gone. So the room is expanded in width. And that's how we're going to have much more seating up there. And the stage will be on the east wall. So I can show you this. I couldn't let you in yet because of hard hat restrictions, but we'll get you in as soon as those are gone. So, we did have the RFP deadline for the coffee bar downtown. We did receive 2 proposals, and we'll be working through those and assessing them and going forward with that project in the next few months. So this is a summary of comments. Phoebe, who's on staff, did an Instagram, correct? And this was all of her comments, and 39 people were all over it in a very short period of time. And that is Phoebe with the big smile and the cool glasses with standing next to Jose. So this book touched so many people in the library. We don't always have that with the Read title, but this one we did. And so you can see it in the enthusiasm of all the people involved. This is one of my favorite people, Jim Ottaviani, who does graphic novels and their history, their nonfiction graphic novels. And this child's parents sent this in. She was allowed to stay up after bedtime to come because she's so crazy about him. And then the next photograph is her reading the next day. I heard from this mother directly outside of this, and she told me that the younger child was able to go to dinner with dad as a consolation and was already in bed before this even began. But when they got home, because all of Jim's books were on sale here, the little girl saw a title she knew she had but she had forgotten about. So she went straight home and started pulling her bookcase apart. And they had this real big tug of war at home about, no, you have to go to bed. You can't do this now. So I love that this came in too. Glad we had that.
The other fun fact about Jim is he works at that other library.
He does, that great big huge one over there. I'm sorry, thank you for mentioning that. The CSA fair was held yesterday, but prior to that, there was a public program about it. And so this is showing you how that was done. All About Ann Arbor did this. And we had, what did we say?
About 500.
About 500 people here yesterday afternoon. So, Rich, what was this on? Tell me. I've lost my notes.
It was WDIV.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
All about it.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right. And we were overjoyed again to partner with Literati on one of their major author events, and it was Madeline Miller who wrote Circe. And this is a view of the Laboratorium audience for her. This came up fast for us. We had, about 2 weeks notice, a week's notice, 6 days notice. And, and so we were able to pull this off, and we were very, very happy. And you can see Literati was happy too that they moved it from their downtown store to the Laboratorium.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we were glad they could and glad they wanted to and glad we could.
How many people?
About 300.
Yeah.
322.
So I want to thank the hard work of the staff who set up the lobby, and they ran the event and stayed late for the signing. Everyone had an amazing time, but this one did run very late because she was signing. So we had people here a long time. So It's February, and for the last few years, that's meant Blind Date with a Book. And the popular program helps patrons find new books and movies to love. And we also offer a surprise book and movie display for kids, so they can also have new things as well. And so that goes through the month of February. We've done this for a number of years, and people find this just to be a fun, interesting way of using the library and not knowing what they're going to get at all. So, this little fella, his mother took this, and he just says all the pretty books to pull from the shelves, all of them, and by the armfuls. You can see, look at his fingers. He has spread those hands out as far as he can, and he's just pulling things off the shelf. And she's watching him do it. So this one is a Stories to Go bag, and I know you know that we have so many of these, and the subjects are on coding, summer, starting school, the earth, books on the neurodiversity, the environment, gender, people with disabilities, and we have a Stories to Go kit that's books in Braille. So, wanted you to know that. It's there. And these are 3 different appreciations of the library. One, for not forgetting that not everyone has easy access to technology around tax time. That's a tax form table at Pittsfield, right? Am I right? Yeah, Pittsfield. And another excited one about the sewing machines and thermal cameras and tools that people can check out. And finally, someone renewing an AADL card who appreciates the ability to let us know and use her preferred name, which we are now able to do. And last, this is just a comment from a person in the community about the Gallup poll published in January that talked about more people have visited the public library in this year than have gone to a movie. And so one of our patrons said, my favorite stat was 2019, Americans went more to the library than to the movies. So there it is. So, and that's my director's report. Thank you very much. Any questions about anything?
I've heard, so have you spoken to the crowd that comes to downtown Ann Arbor? Are we the biggest attraction? Do we attract the most number of people?
Yes, we have the highest door count of anything in Ann Arbor except the stadium. We still do, yes. Yep. Annual door count.
Annual door count.
Now, you have to remember that's door count. That's not individual people. But that's through our doors in the downtown library and in the system as a whole. We certainly do more than any other. Yep. Except the stadium. Yep.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for Josie? Hines?
Is there a question?
Yeah, Josie, I just wondered if you wanted to comment a bit about in this trend that I keep reading about where libraries are taking off fines. And there was something in the paper last week, I think it was in the Free Press, that was about how a bunch of Michigan libraries are doing that. And I mean, I have my own personal views, which is I don't see us as a community in need of doing that, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me people were wondering if we were thinking about doing that and why we might or might not.
We've had a few people ask, and I've answered people directly, and I've answered on the comments database, and then we talked about it here a few months ago. What my answer to that is, any library that has eliminated fines has another way of retrieving lost items and the funds for lost items that they're not talking about. And I personally am appalled by that. So an example is, in this system, when a person loses an item, their 45 days go by before they're billed for that item, right? And in a number of the systems that have stopped collecting overdue fines, they're billing within 2 weeks. So what would for us be a fine period where we can negotiate those fines, because once an item comes back, we're not worried about the fine. It's the item coming back. Because the thing, and this is another thing I try to explain to people, you don't count fines heavily as a revenue stream. The library never has. And the board has appreciated and supported the library's practice of waiving fines to the tune of a couple $100,000 a year in the last few years. Because it's not the fine, it's the material. And so when people work with us and they know we will, and they do, then we find a way to resolve it for people about my house burned or it was on the airplane. I mean, and we just believe that, and then we take care of it.
Yeah.
When a person really, really can't bring back the material for whatever reason, then we negotiate a reduction that works for them. That is not a complete waive of everything because the material's gone and we can't get it back, but it's a reduction. So what my answer to this is, fines are an incentive for material that does not belong to the person who's borrowed it to bring that material back so that the person on the whole list or wherever has equal access to it. The libraries that are saying that they've reduced fines as an equity action are not telling everyone what they're doing on the opposite side to recover that income. And it's often a lot more money more quickly than any fine that anybody would build up. So that's my answer to it.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I seem to recall too, at one point when we discussed this, you had also mentioned that our fine, we don't send, the fines that go to collections don't show up in your credit report.
No, they don't.
So they don't have an impact on
no.
your overall,
No.
Financial
And children's cards
health,
don't go.
and children's cards don't go. So
Right. That's right.
I think it's interesting to revisit the topic from time to time to think about if it's still working. And I also think we just have a very we have a very individualized and customer service oriented way of handling it that works for you, Josie, and for the staff, that we all feel good about, that we believe is equitable and allows us to give that top notch
And when
service.
when the outreach staff visit schools in the summer or summer camps, and we're talking to young people about using the library, kids will tell you outright, right? I can't use the library. My card's blocked, blah, blah, whatever. The staff they go right in and clear it.
Yeah.
And say, yes, you can now. You can now. Because what a 10-year-old did at 6 or didn't do at 6, maybe an adult did it when they were 6, should not hold them back from a library card. And so that's not what we're trying to do at all. I also will remind you, when you redid the fine structure a few years ago, and our fine ceiling, the ceiling that stops a card, went from $10 to $25. So people are not stopped from a card for a little bit.
And we reduce certain fines as well, like
Yes. You
DVDs, which is very
reduce
helpful for those
DVD
families, I
fines
think.
way down. We do have more significant fines on tools, but they're very expensive items. Right.
So I know I said this last time we talked about this, but my only concern is just the kid who's not brave enough to say, my
Yeah.
card's blocked,
Yeah,
And
right.
so I'm thinking that it would be good for us to just keep talking about this. from
And
time to time.
we do, Jamie, and
I
we
know.
keep talking about it, and all the staff who visit schools talk about it, and we try to let teachers know, don't let this stop a child from coming for a second grade roundup or whatever field trip. We'll work this out. And we offer cards to any child attending school in our district, no matter where they live. So schools of choice students also have access to this public library system.
I think it's interesting also to think about, because the way I see it characterized is a barrier to use kind of thing. And I also think of it from the flip side. What's the barrier to use? I mean, probably everyone in this room has gotten on a list for a book that's 50 deep. And yeah, I wonder what would happen to that. Were people not incentivized to get things in?
Well, and I did have a patron who was very understanding and savvy about this say to me, "You have responsibility, Mrs. Parker, to all the people in the community to try to make sure the collection is safe in the sense of returned, because everyone's bought it and everyone can borrow it. So we want to make sure that we can have access as much as possible, and that's correct. At the same time, there's a certain amount of loss that's going to happen. But what we're not interested in is having a person go away from here never wanting to experience the use of a public library
Right,
again
exactly.
because of something like that. So we're always looking for ways to reach people to say, I can handle that. We can take care of that. We can take care of that. It's the habitual issues that we deal with differently, and that occurs. And you would want us to deal with that differently. So,
Thank you.
does that help you? That good? Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other questions for Josie? Thank you for another Dynamite Month.
Thank you.
Great. Moving along on our agenda. Old business, an update from Len on construction projects.
Good evening. So, starting with Pittsfield Branch, we have received the glass that we've been waiting on. So all of the glass, the large meeting rooms, small meeting rooms, that's in place. The baffling is in place in the large meeting room. The electrical's in, so a few finishing touches like monitors. That one's completely done. Trevorwood, as Josie mentioned, the painting's done. A little bit of carpeting left. The glass and the vertical structure should be going in this week. The hardwood floors have been refinished. The desk has been refinished. Computer tables, on and on and on. So we think we'll be ready to open Monday, March 2nd at 10 a.m., our normal open time. And it'll give us time to move some shelving, finish some of the carpet, shift the whole collection, and be ready to open in 2 weeks. So that one's going really well, and we got quite a bit done. So I think when everyone goes in the building, they're going to see really nothing was left untouched. The whole building's been refinished in one way or another. Downtown, the demo's done. Framing for all the rooms has been completed. Drywall's going up. We've got carpet ordered. That one is probably on schedule for around mid-March. For the fourth floor meeting room, we'll have a couple things we're waiting on that are a little longer lead time, like glass and doors and things like that. But so far, so good. It's going really well. The big thing this week is a little bit of electrical, some HVAC, and keep the drywall finishers going. That way we can get the carpet down. So it's going pretty good. But that one's it's a tight schedule, and so O'Neill's doing a great job managing that project, and it's really exciting, you guys, when you see the space. I think everyone's going to be happy. And then lastly, we're still working on all of the details around generators at branches. Where would they sit? Site surveys for utilities, sizing of equipment. I hope to have all that for the March meeting. We've had a lot of back and forth with our engineers we're working with. We want to make sure we get it right and get all the details absolutely perfect before we bring anything in front of you. I know we've been waiting months to kind of get something concrete, and we're really close. But I think for the March meeting, we'll have something we can talk about, sizing, what they look like, where they would sit, those type of things. So, any questions? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, we're moving along. Carrie, we have a resolution to adopt our 2020 strategic plan.
You wanted to talk before you?
Yes. Well, this is an item of discussion. Do we have any? Should we discuss amongst ourselves?
It's discussion and action. So
Yes.
you can pass the resolution and have this be part of the discussion, and then vote. That's totally fine.
Let's do that. I think that would be. We've lost a trustee.
Well, I move to adopt the 2020 strategic plan.
Second.
Discussion.
That's
Now discussion.
yes. It's perfect timing, Jim. I don't know if did you hear?
No.
We've replaced you since you're.
Thank you. Well, I'll be going home now. Just in time for dinner.
We're on the resolution to adopt the 2020 strategic plan. So we had a motion and now seconded, and now up for discussion. So we're gonna have Carrie lead it off for that discussion, and then with questions from us.
And let me just say, I can say as much or as little as you like, so I'll take my lead from you. I thought it could be useful just to sort of remind us where we are in the process, and recap the main pieces of feedback that you all shared the last time I was here, which was in January. So basically at that meeting, we went over the process and really just got you oriented to the draft strategic plan, which you had a limited time to review when I appeared at that meeting. And so it was really just about getting feedback and reactions. Main feedback and reactions, I would say, were kind of 4 buckets. One was appreciating the altitude of the plan. To Mr. Defus's point during public comment, it is a different altitude than you're accustomed to. And we talked a little bit about how different plans serve different organizations at different times in their evolution. And so this plan is much more higher level, much less operational, rightfully observed, more of a focus on the visionary with durable values that will guide the decisions that come before you all the time. I mean, you hear them sort of embedded in Josie's report and in the conversations you had about, I think it would be more fair if, and I think, couldn't we be more equitable? What defines have an impact on people's access to the library? So try to just really try something new this time that can serve you long into the future. Part of that recognition was just that the library is really good at strategic doing. You think about goals all the time. You think about partners all the time. You think about how you can live your values all the time. And so, so let's give some flexibility to that and the trust that the board has in staff and the public has in the staff, you know, to the point of it's hard to get better when you're so good. So trying to set the bar a little bit higher in terms of values that will guide you into the future and a filter for how you're going to make decisions. A lot of enthusiasm for the staff's reaction to the strategic plan, to the values specifically, the enthusiasm for those refreshed values, really receptive to that, resonated with them. They can see themselves in that work. And that it's really the AADL secret sauce. It's not just one person or 2 people or a leadership team. It permeates throughout. There was a question on the stakeholder engagement, which was less during the strategic planning process for a reason. One was when we recognize that this is going to be a very values-focused strategic plan, much more higher level, that to me is an introspective process. It's for you to say what your values are. And it's for you to declare those and define those and own them. And that the place for stakeholder engagement, in my mind, is when you're testing out ideas and whether those align with your values that you've already declared and owned. So being in conversation with the community, with partners about what can we do better in alignment with our values to serve you, to serve your constituency, to serve the people that you serve. So when you're testing specific initiatives or trying to get better on a goal that you're working toward or trying out a program, that's the time for that kind of conversation. And last but not least, there was feedback on the specific section where we talked a little bit about this idea of the individual versus the group. That was really what the wordsmithing suggestions came down to, was wanting to have a little less emphasis on individual choice. The concern there being that once you elevate the individual, do you lose the diversity and inclusion focus about thinking about groups as a whole and not wanting to sort of have the individual take primacy over that. So took that back, worked as a strategic planning committee to really refine that language. I only printed out page 5, which is the one that's different than what you saw before. And so really just here to hear more feedback on how that language landed, whether it satisfied some of the concerns and the hesitation from last time, and certainly what other questions you may have.
Any thoughts?
I think it's a pretty excellent revision. Everyone's waiting for me to talk because I was the one who pushed back the hardest at the meeting. I think it definitely, I mean, I think it really encapsulates the conversation that we had and the sort of ways in which individuals and groups interplay and how, you know, we are interested in, we are really very committed to community here and thinking about what community means in a lot of different dimensions. And I think that I'm not sure I'm going to propose any additional changes. I would only ask that we continue to think about, there is one word here. Thank you for laughing. Which is to say crafting offerings and creating ways to connect with new people. And I don't necessarily think it's new necessarily. It's not there. They are, and that new isn't necessarily the modifier all the time. It's not people who have just like shown up here in the community. That the thing that we're kind of driving at is that question of welcoming, always seeking to welcome those that like don't necessarily feel welcome right now or are included now. And I think, but I'm sort of fine with it because the language is gesturing towards that already. Broadest possible audience. I still have my own reservations about broad audience language as it pertains to really having to have specific and intentional tactics to reach certain kinds of folks in the community. And it's one of the ways in which the plan is least fleshed out, and intentionally so. So I'll just be looking for that as it's operationalized.
I appreciate
Because
that.
it's the things that we say and the things that we do,
Yeah.
right, that matter. So, can the committee or can someone remind me what the community engagement process is going to be like after this? Isn't there?
Well, I think that the community engagement is just the everyday life of the library once it's adopted. So because it's so high level, as Carrie and then David in the public comment pointed out, it puts so much onus on the library staff to live it in an engaged way. But I think it's also, the idea is that we like thoroughly trust and believe in their ability to do that.
And I agree, Jamie, but I would also say that we as a board have to continue to think, are we espousing these values in the decisions that we make? I mean, not every decision comes to us, of course, but that it has to be a living document for us as well until we decide it doesn't meet our needs anymore, and then we get to revise it all over again.
Correct. And Carrie mentioned that we are already using the values in our speaking, and that's cool. I hadn't noticed that, but that's true.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions or thoughts before we, any questions, Carrie? No? We're good?
I just wanted to thank Carrie for coming back a second time.
My pleasure. I love any opportunity to be at the library. I was like, oh, Peter and the Wolf on March 7th. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, well, we are up for a vote then. All those in favor to adopt the 2020 strategic plan?
Aye.
I don't think we need
Yes?
to read it because
So
I
don't
don't
need to read it?
that.
Okay.
Right?
I didn't read it.
Because I didn't read the
The
well, it's not-
resolution.
right.
You can read it.
Would you like to read it as the chair
Sure.
of the strategic planning
I
committee?
can find it quickly.
35.
35. Okay. Okay. The board resolves as follows: to adopt the proposed Ann Arbor District Library Strategic Plan 2020, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. We now have a new strategic plan. Kudos to the strategic plan committee and Carrie and everyone at Bridgeport, and of course staff for participating in this year-long process. This was a really good learning experience, I think, for everyone. Great. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business.
I would move to approve the resolution for the accounting firm Yo-Yo to complete the library's audits for FY20 through FY2022. And the board resolves to approve the accounting firm of Yo-Yo, Ann Arbor, Michigan, to complete the library's audit for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2020 through June 30th, 2022 at the following rates. As listed in the resolution, I'm not going to read them, and that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, that's right, this is the discussion. We did discuss this a little bit beforehand during the finance committee report, knowing that we would be extending this contract. Is there,
Yep. So again, this was kind of built in it from the beginning, 1 year with the possibility of extension, and they've done a very good job. The library's been very happy with them. I think the board's been very happy with what they've done, so that's what this is about.
any other thoughts? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, so moved. We have another item of action.
I would move for closed session at the March 16th, 2020 regular board meeting for discussion of real estate and opinion of council.
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Discussion.
No discussion, do we have any discussion?
We expect to have this at 6 PM?
Oh, dinner at 5:30? Dinner at 5:30, great. Any thoughts?
Roll call.
Great.
Yes.
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 Great, thank you, Karen. Do we have any additional citizens' comments? It's only 8 o'clock.
Crazy.
Really? I feel like we had a very full meeting, though. Is this not right? Okay. We were amazing. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us with that. We will see everyone next month. The meeting adjourned. All right. Nice moves.